All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. This is Heath Robinson with Topaz Labs. I'm happy to be hosting again, and I am thrilled to welcome back John Barclay. He will be presenting crafting your. Oh, hang on a sec. He will be presenting crafting your images with Topaz Studio and the Topaz collection of plugins. If y'all don't know John, John is an award-winning photographer. He's based in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. He's passionate and enthusiastic about being a workshop leader. He leads workshops all over the nation and tours all around the world. Recently, John was invited to join National Geographic photographers Jonathan Kingston, DeWitt Jones, and Ricky Cook to co-lead the See the Light seminar in Molokai, Hawaii. And if you don't know much about John, you're about to get to know him a whole lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, John.
Well, thank you, Heath. It's nice to be back. Let's do the checks here. This is all new, folks. We're using this Google Hangouts. I hope I'm saying that right. You know, I'm old. I don't know all this lingo now. So you can hear me okay, Heath?
Yes, sir, I can.
Excellent. Good. Well, thanks for showing up today, folks. It's been a while since I've done a webinar, and it's nice to be back. So thank you for taking some time out of your day to visit with us here about the Topaz product. So what are we going to do today? Well, Topaz, if you're not aware, Topaz has released recently in the last month or so, maybe a little bit more than that, the new Topaz Studio, the interface that you're looking at right now. So we'll spend really the entire 45 minutes or so within Topaz Studio so that hopefully we'll demystify it a little bit, and you'll soon realize that you can do an awful lot from within Topaz Studio. We'll also look at some black and white conversions. There's a lot of people out there screaming and hollering about Nick no longer being supported by our friends at Google who are doing this Hangout. There are other options, and we can certainly.
Oh, John, I lost you for a second.
Well, are you there? Hello, back again?
Yeah, I got you back.
Okay, good. I don't know where you lost me. So we'll cover some black and white solutions for those who are fretting about silver effects, leaving the planet maybe at some point, and then clarity, which is now a lot of it is baked right into Studio. Impression, and we'll show you how you can do a little bit of painterly effects from within Studio, but you can jump right out. So we'll help you understand what Studio does and when you can jump out to the plugins should you want to as well. So let's get started with some basics. Right now we're looking at a Palouse image. And it's a raw file, and all I did was drag and drop images into this slide view at the bottom. It's as simple as that. You can actually go and go file open, bring a file into Studio. This is easy, and you can drag them right from Lightroom right on into here, and they'll populate. I did it already because obviously a raw file is going to take a little bit of time to drop in here. So let's look at what the logical workflow would be. But before we do that, the interfaces, we can make this 100% up here. We can make it fit to screen. You can scroll your mouse and make this fit bigger or smaller. Your adjustments are here at the moment. You can also grab the adjustments here. From within the free version of Studio, you have a number of these. What the Pro Pack does is it enables the sliders for all of them, or the ones that you choose to buy separately. So if you want to have like Pro Contrast, which you would find here, Precision Contrast rather, the Pro version of that will allow you to use the sliders. You'll see its effect as a preset, but if you really want to be able to custom tailor it, you're going to need to pay for Shop Pro at the bottom of this panel. You can remove these panels if you want to by hitting the caret on the left and right to give yourself more room. All of them will move to give you more space to look at. You have different views here to see the data, a nav view, the RGB view, and so forth. And then over here you have presets, which is what Topaz is well known for. So you can look at just black and white presets, and as you scroll over those, you can see the previews here, or you can click on it and it's going to apply a black and white preset. Once I do that, you can see that it adds its own adjustment layers here on the right side. I'm going to hit reset and be a little bit more basic at this moment in time. So that's the the general overview. One last one you might want to know about is they've added, if you go here and you finish working on something, you can actually share your finished goodness to the Facebook world if you want to, very easily. So you can just finish working on your photograph here, hit File, share to Facebook, and it'll give you a dialog box and send it right out to your Facebook account. Okay, so basic workflow, really basic on this first image, and then we'll build on the concepts. Over here on the right side, which is where all of the adjustments that you'll need to work on are, I'm going to hit basic. And this gives me a layer on the right side. It gives me a layer with these particular tools to use. It also has some presets should you want to, and you can roll over those, and you can see, even though this is a raw file, it's acting on this pretty quickly. So if you want to try those presets, you can do that. You have different blend modes that you can use for each particular one. You have an opacity slider for every adjustment layer that is created here. And where the plus sign is, you have a mask, which we will show you as we move along through a couple of these examples. Okay, you're bored to tears, so let's do this. What you're going to need to understand is these exposure, clarity, shadow, and highlight. You're thinking, as I probably are thinking like I was, it'd be nice to have a black point and a white point, and you're thinking in Lightroom terms. These sliders act a little differently than you would think. There are algorithms built into these sliders to restrain, for instance, in the shadow and highlights, anything from blocking up with shadows or anything for highlights from blowing out. If you'll see, as I pull this over and you watch the RGB histogram, it's spreading the data, but it's not blowing out the data. So, and then the clarity is going to add some detail and some local contrast. So pretty quickly with the movement of those sliders, we can get this from looking, and I'm using this eyeball up here to turn this on and off, to looking somewhat good at this point. And now we can do it down to the saturation and bring up the greens as it should be. And now we have temperature control, which think of this as your temperature and tint here as your white balance. So pretty quickly we can get that looking. Let go and see the processed image. I can hit the icon up at the top of the screen and it'll show me before and after. Okay, so if we wanted to do a little bit more work, we can add another layer. And so let's hit brightness. Notice that the basic adjustment still exists. If I want to look at what I did there and make adjustments, I just click on that. I click on this to go away. Now, if I click on the brightness contrast, I can affect brightness and contrast if I wanted to. And saturation will be, we already did saturation up here. I don't need to touch it again here. Just trying to introduce, excuse me, the tools. Okay, so let's go to another one. Let's start doing the same thing and see if we can't solidify some of the concepts and maybe add some more. So we're going to open up the basic again. I'm going to darken this a little bit, add clarity. Darkening shadows is more of adding a black point. Think about highlights as adding a white point. And you can see this start to come together pretty good. And now we add some saturation, warm this up a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and go out and get the brightness adjustment and brighten this whole thing up just a little bit. Now it's starting to look a little better. Hit this adjustment again. And believe it or not, bring the exposure down. Exposure and brightness on the other work differently. Let's add another tool here, a couple of tools to understand. So now these are some of the tools. Here are a number of other tools that are available to you. So I'll be able to talk. Precision contrast, if you're familiar with Topaz products, should be somewhat familiar to you. If these sliders here are very similar, and rightly so, because my favorite plugin, Topaz Clarity. So this is think about this as clarity, is the way I think about it, the precision contrast. And as a matter of fact, I understand through the grapevine, you'll see pretty much clarity come to life here in a future iteration. So we can add that local contrast now of clarity here. And we can affect the brightness again from within this panel, just like we can in the Topaz Clarity panel. So now let's see where we started. Somewhat flat. We've lost some of those vibrant greens. No problem. I come back up here to my panel, my original panel, the basic adjustment panel, and I start to bring back those greens that were there. Now, let's add another one. Go down here to a wonderful tool called dehaze, and the dehaze is going to do similar things to what we see dehaze in other programs. Tool, and so far my experience with the dehaze tool in Topaz Studio is it's excellent. What you can do as well to add a new concept here is, remember I said the plus sign is a mask for any one of these adjustment layers that I've added to this image. Let's say I want to have this dehaze, but I only want this dehaze to affect the front or the back of this image, or the foreground or the background of this image. All I have to do is hit the plus, and now I have a mask. And if I want to brush, I hit the brush. And now notice here the mask density, and this is important because I didn't understand this, I had to get Heath to help me. Black, painting with the black is over here, painting with the white is over here. So the mask density, rather than black or white, you can actually have the density of that mask change. And I'll kind of drill that home later with a car image that'll show you. And we have different ways of masking, with a brush, with a spot, with a gradient, by color, with luminosity. So there's different ways that we can do this. I'm going to reset this because I've just confused the program, and specifically choose a gradient. This should be familiar to many people. I can make that gradient bigger or smaller, and I can flip it upside down if I want to, right? So I have it appear at the top or the bottom, and then if I click on the white one, whoops, let me get this further apart. I can bring this down, and I can have now the dehaze being applied just to the background. So let's see if we can see where that is. Let's move the strength of that up a little bit, and you'll see that dehaze now is just applying to the background of this image because the foreground looked pretty good. So really a nice tool to be able to control dehaze. And so I would encourage you, if you have images where that distant background is hazy, which it tends to be with atmospheric haze, you can have more than one dehaze slider, so or adjustment layer. So let's go ahead and do that. I can go in and get dehaze again, and I can now do dehaze again, hit the plus sign, and now I can do a gradient for just the foreground. And now I'm working on, so if I wanted that to be two different levels of dehaze happening, now I can do that on the foreground and the background. Okay, let's move on to another one. And now just want to introduce you to the fact that over here on the bottom right, you can save any one of your stacks, that preset. So let's go back real quickly here. So let's say this, you really like this particular result, and you now would like to apply that result to 4 or 5 other images that you took on that same scene in the same light. All you do is come down here to the bottom right, click Save the effect. It'll give you a dialog box to name the effect, give it a description, and put it into a category. And then you can make it either available to the public, because this is a community-based piece of software as well, should you want it to be, and share that effect that you've made, or that recipe, if you will, with the rest of the world. And you can put it in a category to make it a little easier for someone else to find. Okay, so what does that mean? Now, if we come here now, on the right, we have all sorts of ways to look at sets of, if you will, groups of. So if I hit, what I did here is I hit the more at the bottom. So I'm at the left here, hit more, and now I have, again, black and white, and I can look at all just black and whites. Or I can look at fine art. And then I can start to scroll through these, and I can get Ray's version of fine art, which not bad right out of the box. Or I can look at landscape specific presets, which are great ways to find looks that might appeal to you, and recognize as soon as I click on these, look what happens on the right side. It shows you what this person, whoever made this preset, used. And once again, like many of the other programs, I can click on this, open it up, and I can make adjustments to whatever they did. So it can be a starting place. And then you can have favorites, which I don't have any yet. And you can have your own. So under the mine, it shows you a Palouse landscape shot. And here's a Palouse landscape shot 2, a different version. Okay, so let's say that was a preset that I had, was landscape 1. It shows you that all it was a simple basic adjustment on the right side. You can then build from there, or I can this might be more than I want, or if I want to throw it away for this particular image, I hit the trash can and it's gone. And for any of you who use Topaz Texture Effects, which was awesome, you'll recognize that that right side in this interface is really developed from that paradigm and that graphical user interface, to where you can have total control on the right side to do what you want with any one of these sliders. So you might want to pull that down, the dehaze a little bit. We could go back to the adjustment and I could make adjustments here and on and on and on. I think you get the idea, and we'll want to move on here to a few other things. So that's the way that we approach processing raw files, and that's what I'm doing here. All of these are unprocessed raw files that I'm working with here to get started. So let me just take a look at my notes, and we'll just jump to this one real quickly. And once again, made a preset on the right side. Again, I clicked on mine, clicked on Palouse truck, and there's what I did. How did I do that? I had a basic adjustment layer, brightness, contrast layer, precision, contrast, tone, curves. And then if I wanted to, let's say I wanted that sky, and specifically just the sky, to be a little bit darker, I could go here to the tone curve and add another one. I could go to where I think that sky is. It should be up in this area. I can darken that. Once again, go to here, open up I could paint it. Let's just do that just for fun here. I could get a brush and I could start to paint in the darkened sky here. Oh, hang on here. Let's make that a little darker so you can actually see it. I should have inverted my mask. I apologize, folks. Let me do this. I can invert the mask, and now I can get my brush and paint with white, and now I can start to paint it in this way, or I can use a gradient mask. Just trying to introduce you to the tools here. Remember, my style is not to make perfect pictures here, but to in a webinar, but to give you ideas. So sorry, I went a little quickly on that. What I did is I added a mask. I inverted the mask, so that, remember, black conceals, white reveals. I didn't want that darkening of the sky to affect the entire image, and so by inverting the mask, it says, hey, it went to a black mask. It says, I'm not going to reveal any of this. And then I went to the mask density, which is, again, remember, that is thinking of that as your white and black brush that we normally think of, but in this case, it gives you a range that you can use should you want to, and there are times when that's really handy. In this case, I wanted to paint with white, so I brought that mask density all the way over to the white, and then I'm able to paint in. And now what I've done to turn the eyeball on and off is I've just darkened that sky, and only the sky in this particular image. So that all started from having a preset that I had and applying it that I'd use for another image from the same shoot that was very similar time, similar conditions, able to apply that and then just do some tweaking to that based on this particular image need. Okay, so how about flowers? Well, let's build this up up in the same way. We'll kind of darken this down a little bit. We'll add some clarity, bring the shadows down quite a bit. Highlight to bring some of the life back on this and make that the center of that flower. Now the magic will happen here when we start to add the saturation back into this flower and start to make it look as I might want to. We're good, Heath?
Yeah, I've lost you a couple times for just a second, but it seems to still be holding. Is there a way you could switch to your laptop microphone?
Hang on. And then let's do this. Did that switch?
It seems to sound the same. It's not really popping anymore, though.
Okay, because I switched it. Sorry about this, folks. It's my first time dealing with this, and we're having a little bit of problems that we spent a half hour trying to figure out the microphone issues. Let's see how that works for a minute at least.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, I lost my train of thought. Let's get back on track here. So, one thing I want to do, I want to start this image over again, if you don't mind, because I didn't check my notes quickly enough, and this is important because this is reasonably new ad. You'll notice there's a bug here and a bug here. Over here on the right side, you have the healing tool now. So now we have the ability to very easily and quickly get rid of the bugs. It's important to do it first, but I would encourage you to do your healing type things first. There's another bug here, but he's kind of cute. I'm going to leave him. Process of basic here. So we'll start this again, get this up like this. Too much detail. And bring this back to here. Cool that down just a little bit. Okay. So now we can make that look pretty nice. And I tell you what, photographing these water lilies was an absolute blast. And if you get a chance to do that, you should. Wherever you live, they seem to, I've been seeing them in many places. I'm going to bring this down a little bit to get that background even a little bit darker with the brightness contrast. Okay, so there are some other things you can do. And so let's introduce you to a couple of more tools from within Studio. Let's go again to the More tab on the bottom right side. And look what we have. We have blurs. In blurs, we have a type of blur. We have a Gaussian blur or a diffusion blur. Well, I just love a diffusion blur and the softness. Look what that does. I love how it does the middle of this flower specifically. It just creates a glow within the inside of that flower. And of course, you should know that it has a mask. So if I don't want to have that, or in this case, let's say I wanted to use a spot, I could remove that glow and just put that glow on the outside. I'm going to reset this. Or I could use a brush. And in this case, I want to paint with black. I could make my brush bigger or smaller, and I could remove that glow quickly from the outside and just leave that glow that I've created with that blur here on the inside. Again, this is not a painting tutorial. It's an ideas tutorial. So let's close that now. And now we can just see that that's happening pretty much to the center of that flower, which I think works exceedingly well here. So we'll leave that. And then let's play a little bit. Let's see what abstraction does. We can add an abstraction layer. And that's going to start to give you some painterly type effects. Almost like a simplify is what's happening here, right? So there's a painterly effect. And remember, when you do a painterly effect, you have an opacity slider, so you don't need to leave it at 100%. You can blend that effect back in with the original. If I pull my opacity slider all the way down to 0, it's showing the original image and then anything else I've done on top of that. So I bring this all the way up. I'm going to go ahead and delete that particular layer, show you one more. We can go to smudge. Let's see what smudge does. I think this is pretty cool. Smudge does that. It makes it, and if I change the extent, it has a different effect. If I change the extent to that smudge, it has even more of a smudge effect. And we go all the way over there. And then I can add some sharpness back to those edge leaves. And once again, if that's too in your face and over the top, I would encourage you to blend that back in with the original. Are we doing better, Heath, with the popping or not, or we're still doing it?
We're still kind of having the same issues. I think it's just the connection between the mic and the computer, but we've already tried working on it. We'll just have to kind of deal with it for now.
Oh, that's frustrating. I wonder if I just unplug. I'm going to unplug my Plantron. You know, I'm afraid to do that because we'll lose everything. Yeah, and I noticed, unfortunately, some people are checking out, which I would too if it's frustrating. It's got to be frustrating for others. Okay, thank you for staying around. If you are, I apologize for the technical issues. Let's just take a quick look here. Okay, I know what I want to do is I'm going to eliminate that last layer of the smudge and go back to all the work I did to get my image to this level. So when I have it at this level, and let's say I want to do more than what smudge will do or more than some abstraction capability from within Studio, and I'd really like to go out to Topaz Impression, I would encourage you to flatten that. So how do I do that? I'm going to come back down to the film strip here, and I'm going to hit apply. What does apply do? Apply is going to flatten the image, and then I can send that off to Impression and allow myself to work on that. But I'm going to do one other thing. I am going to go to image size just because I know it's going to take some time. It's processor intensive. I'm going to make this half the size. And now when we go out, and how do we do that? So I've just made the file a little smaller, so when we work in impressions, it's going to go a little faster. I'm going to go back up here. So far we've been using the adjustment tools, clicking on more to see more of those tools. I'm going to go up here to plugins, and then all of the plugins that I have already purchased are going to show up here. And all I'm going to do is go to Impressions 2 and let that open. And now we have the ability to use the much more robust editing tool of Impression. So if you like the painterly look and want to have more available to you, I would encourage you to go get the Topaz Impression software. And how does that work? If I find one that I like, I can click on the sliders, I can open up the sliders, and now I can make adjustments. I can pick a different brush. I can have the number of strokes be more or less, and that's going to have a different effect. I can change the paint volume, and on and on and on. With limited time here to go through, just trying to introduce you. If I go back up here, the one I love to show on this image, I can also search. So I'm at the top right side of the interface. If I click on the 3 dots, it gives me different ways to view presets. I'm going to go here and type in Georgia, like George O'Keeffe, and then click on this one. And I just love the look that we can get with a George O'Keeffe. And then again, the opacity slider here at the bottom, and I can dial that in a little bit more to my taste and not so over the top. Or if you like it over the top, you can leave it that way with the opacity slider here. So as good as Studio is, it does. You may want to jump out to something like Impression and get a little bit more robust features, and you can do that. And you can do the same thing here. Let's go ahead and hit OK, commit to those changes. Whoops. And there we are. It sends it back into Topaz Studio. And now if you'd like, you can work on this further right from within Topaz Studio. I'm probably not going to have time, but you can even do some texture work. So if you hit texture, it's going to open up a very familiar panel for any of you who own Topaz Texture Effects. You do have the ability to do some texture work, albeit somewhat limited compared to what you can do from within the Texture Effects program all by itself, much more robust. Okay, let's do something kind of fun here. If we have this image, bald blue sky. Who likes bald blue skies? Nobody, right? We'll just do a couple of quick adjustments to this. Bring the saturation up a little bit. And then, but here we have a sky taken on a similar time. And so let's go ahead and make that sky a little nicer. And see if we can't possibly bring this into, whoops, I'm going to bring those highlights down a little bit because they're, so come up this way. So let's leave it at that. Okay, so look how easy this is. I can go to more, image layer, and now when I do image layer, this says, hey, why don't you drop a picture in here? So let's do that, see what happens. I'm going to drop a picture in there of a sky. How do I see those sky? I'm going to bring my opacity slider down just a little bit so I can see the barn behind it. Now, if I look down below the preview here, I have an edit button. The edit button allows me to move that sky where I want to, make it a little bigger or smaller if I want to. So I'm going to move the sky up a little bit. There we go, something like that. And then I'm going to go to my masking tool. I'm going to hit my brush. And hello, John. By the way, you do have an undo tool. At the bottom here, I can undo anything I've just done. Undo and redo, unlimited, which is really great. So I can start to paint here. And here. And remember, when you're painting, you don't want the inside red to go above. Well, in this case, I can go up here because I don't care. But and that starts to remove this. But in here, when I'm going around the barn, I want that inside edge of the red to not go outside the barn. Otherwise, it's going to bleed over to the outside. So let's see. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring my opacity all the way up. And we can start to see here. And I would have to go in here and kind of mask out all this stuff too to get, if you want to. So let's go back to the revert on the mask because I did a lousy job. See, that's what happens when you have technical problems and you're frustrated with what's going on. So
hey, John.
Yep.
You've got, this is actually a good point. You've got your mask set right here. If you look underneath where it says edgeware, there's a toggle at the bottom that says either layer or input. Okay. Right now you're wanting to track it to the barn, and since the barn is your input image, not the image layer, if you click input, it will automatically take your edgeware and apply it to the barn and not the hills and stuff in the sky.
Okay, got it. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to reset that mask completely, right? Bring this down so I can see that. See that? We all learned together, and now I should be able to take the brush and go here, correct?
Yes, sir.
There we go. And I should be able to get rid of that as well. And cover that across. But you get the idea here. Again, I always am reluctant to do these because, and I think I would probably move that image to a slightly different place because it's bleeding through the two blue skies here. But the idea is that you can blend a sky in, and it really should be easier than that if you're not flustered with what's going on. So let's move on. My gosh, that's so frustrating. I apologize, folks. So how about the black and white world? Well, there's many ways to do black and white, and there's lots of good tools out there. And let me go down to my notes here to make sure we're doing the right thing. So I brought this image in from Lightroom. Let's go here and show you precision contrast in a little bit more depth, and let's do a default. Let's show you how cool this is. So reduce shadow. How amazing is that? So all I did was go to precision contrast, right? I got that through my more choices here, precision contrast. And in this case, I went to the presets. And presets allow me to, I have a John Start, which I use a lot. Again, remember, precision contrast is a lot like Topaz Clarity. But in this case, I was playing around a little bit, and the reduced shadow makes this look exactly like I would want it to look. I think it looks tremendous. But let's see what we have here for some other tools to attack black and white. Well, I can go here, and I can now have control over the black and white image, just like you might think you should, right? So you have some red, green filters, right? So typical filters like you would have in other pieces of software. And then you can affect the tonalities by moving these sliders as well. And then you can adjust the brightness of the image from within here. You have some detail adjusting to add some detail, and it does a nice soft job of doing that. If you're creating some artifacts, you can suppress those, and the color sensitivity is just what you think it is. It is adjusting those color sliders and making them more sensitive or less sensitive. So you can do it that way and make some adjustments. Or Let's get rid of that black and white layer. And let's go ahead, because I made sure this was a smaller file, if I'm not mistaken. We can go out to Topaz black and white effects and see what capabilities we have here. And this is, again, a much more robust, pretty straightforward processing from within the Studio black and white module. Time goes on as well, I'm told. So now we're in the black and white effects plugin, which again we accessed from Studio, and now we have our normal workflow. We can look at adding a filter based on these filter choices. And what I want you to understand is then when I'm hitting these, it's going ahead and just adjusting where on the hue line here these are going. So if I hit blue, just as we expect, it's moving this over here. It's important for you to know that, because you now can choose one of these 6 choices, or you can then further enhance this by saying, hey, I'm going to make this even a stronger effect or a weaker effect, or I can make it anywhere along this continuum that I want to until I get the particular look that I'm after. Then once we do that, that's a global adjustment. I can now do these color sensitivities just like I did from within Studio, and I can start to make some adjustments here based on color tonality. So all the same things that I had from within Silver Effects, I still have those capabilities from within here. So I have the global ones, just like that was one of the real big benefits of Silver Effects, was this particular box here. It's there here. And then you also have basic adjustments if you want to, but what you don't have in a lot of other programs, and you do have here, is adaptive exposure. And if you don't know Topaz products, this is really what the whole product was built on, the ability to adjust the exposure here, and at the same time say how many of the tonalities do you want to be affected. So the more I pull the regions over to the right, the more tonalities that are going to be adjusted by this adjustment. Or if I pull it to the left, only the darks and the lights are being adjusted. The more I pull it to the right, more of the tonalities through that image are going to be adjusted. So that's a really nice capability that other pieces of software don't have, and it's built right into black and white effects. And then you have all these creative tools should you want to use those as well. And as a matter of fact, one that I always like to show because it really works well is this transparency slider. So I just went down to the bottom into finishing touches here, transparency slider. If I pull this all the way to the right, it gives us this neat old world looking photo out of a black and white piece of software. A lot of people are not aware that that exists. That's why I like to touch base. I know some of you are back watching webinars with me again. You've seen me do this, and it's probably the most requested one that I get. And so it is not bringing, in this case, just really important to know.
You lost you again for a second there, John.
Isn't that terrible? For how long? Is it just a second, or is it for a while?
It's normally 1 to 2 seconds when you pop out, but you said it's really important to know this, and then it cut out, of course.
Right. 100% opacity of the original image. It's blending it back into some degree, and that's what's give away when you see it, what I'm doing. So I'll go ahead in this case and accept OK. And that's going to pop it back in just so you can see that it's not even close. So here's what the original image was, much more vibrant, lively. This one that I created with the black and white effects, which I think is an awesome look, is done at 100% opacity, and with that, it's still really not 100% back to what it was. It's blending in that black and white with it. Okay, so let me look at the time. We're getting close. There's a lot of folks doing infrared out there nowadays. And so I thought I would just throw an infrared picture into Studio and see what happened. And so all I'm going to simply do is go to black and white, and that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to go to basic, and I can change my exposure a little bit. I can add some clarity back into that. Bring the shadows down quite a bit to darken it. Bring the highlights up. We're starting to make things look pretty darn good. I don't want to blow those highlights out. not bad. And then if I wanted to, I suppose I could do a brightness adjustment and maybe brighten that up just a little bit. Not bad. And then a lot of people like it, their infrared images to have somewhat of a glow. So let's go back and go to the blurs. Let's go to diffusion, and we can have a blur. Let me hit this on and off here. Before, and it's going to be hard to see. You'll need to trust me that it is adding this nice softness and almost like a glow to this particular image. Well, I'm reluctant to go further because we have so many technical, and I sure it. I hope we at least were able to introduce you to Studio, maybe demystify it a little bit and give you an idea that there's an awful lot of power. And true to form, the folks at Topaz are working diligently to update the program regularly and adding new tools. For instance, and I hope I'm not speaking out of school, I think you're going to see the clarity adjustment become part of, it's already pretty much there. It'll probably be a little more refined and be part of this particular interface. The intent is to, with Studios, to give you a one-stop place where you can bring your images in and have a whole lot of control, right from just simple raw processing of that image to adding affected type of looks to things if you want to. And as it builds, I think you'll see more and more capability from within this piece of software. If you don't have it yet, again, remember it's free to get started, so you might as well download it and play around and see what you like. You can add the Pro Pack either as one group at one time, or you can add the Pro Pack one as a whole group of them and get the whole thing. And then updates they make and adds you can add as they go. So apologize for the technical difficulties. We're going to need to work on that as we move forward. We were, like I said, we were trying for a half an hour to resolve the issue, and it's a known issue for sure. But we didn't have the ability to fix it. It was reasonably complicated fixes that we were finding that we didn't have time to do. So apologize for the difficulty, and for those who stuck around, thank you. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you so much, John. And again, I do want to mention, if you're interested in Topaz Studio or any of the plugins that John's shown, you can look at the description in the video below. Right below the video, I've added links there that will take you directly to the Topaz Studio and Topaz Plugins page. Again, Topaz Studio is free. You get a lot of these tools for free. Just the pro adjustments you have to pay for. So it's worth it to download it, give it a shot. Let us know your feedback. We'd love to hear what you like and what you don't like. We're constantly making updates to Studio. As a matter of fact, the next big update that should come in a couple weeks will change a lot of the interface stuff to make it a lot more intuitive working moving forward. But definitely give us any feedback you've got. We're looking for that. And we're pushing out updates as quickly as possible. So all that stuff tends to get implemented quite quickly. John, we don't really have very many questions. I've made a couple of asks. So far, the only one that I have is from, where did it go? Oh, goodness. Oh, looks like it got a bunch. Let's see. Scrolling up. Where is it? It was about noise within Topaz Studio, and I don't think you touched on the reduced noise, but if you've got noise in your images, adding some of these filters can enhance that.
Absolutely. And so we have here a reduced noise capability. It's, again, you can grab that from your more adjustments, and basically what you have here is part of the award-winning Topaz denoise software to be able to reduce noise here.
Yep, thank you. And I'm going to scroll back.
Generally, as you're looking for those, still general idea there, by the way, is you want to reduce the noise ahead of time. So if you know you're going to be doing some aggressive work, you might want to do a low-level noise reduction first, but you can then come in here and do some noise reduction as well.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take the screen back and switch. I know everybody tuned in, and I'll be about 130 people stick with us the whole time.
Yeah, again, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so everybody, thank you very much for watching. I want to let you guys know, of course, we have a 25% discount or 20% discount code for you. That is Barclay Web 25. It's good towards individual products, the Topaz collection, and collection upgrades on both the plugin and the Studio store. So if you find yourself wanting to get the Pro Pack from the Studio Store or any of the individual adjustments that you can buy, put this code in and get 20% off. Or if there's anything on the Topaz Plugins store that you'd like, add this coupon code in and get that 20% off there as well. That's valid through next Tuesday, which is the 8th. Anything you want to know about John, you can find on his website at barclayphoto.com. You can also follow his Instagram at John Barclay Photo, his Facebook at facebook.com/John Barclay Photo, or his Twitter at JH Barclay. And as always, if you have any questions, you can contact us at webinars@topazlabs.com or sign up for future webinars. I've got to update that page a little bit, but we'll be hosting them through YouTube Live. I'm really sorry for the technical difficulties we had. We did work to try and correct it, but we'll be sure and have that fixed for the next one. So yeah, thank you for sticking with us. John, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, please reach out to us. And John would certainly appreciate your feedback as well.
You bet. Thanks, folks.
Yep.
Bye-bye.